Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. There's kind of a somber mood out there with everything going on, so maybe switch off of that and focus on some good vibes for an hour or so if you can. We're with one of my favorite acoustic guitarists, with Jon Stickley. He is an incredibly talented guy. He's pretty much invented or spearheaded one of the biggest movements in acoustic music that's going on out there right now, and he's been doing it a long time, and he's paid a lot of dues, and I'm glad to see he's getting a lot of recognition now because it's well deserved. He's got a new record out called Scripting the Flip, which we'll talk about, and let me get into it. The background on Jon: he combines traditional bluegrass with Americana in an unusual trio setting with Jon on guitar. And then he's got a violinist and a drummer, which you don't often see in you never see in traditional bluegrass. He grew up in Chapel Hill, equally enjoying punk and bluegrass, and somehow he made these two genres come together in his music. In 2012, after playing in several regional bluegrass groups, Jon felt it was time to move out on his own. Originally, the Jon Stickley Band consisted of a more traditional bluegrass lineup, but thanks to a last-minute call for a gig, the trio concept was born. He couldn't get a bass player, but he got a fiddle player, and his roommate was a drummer, and there you go. Sometimes that's how things – have you ever thought about that, man, like how the serendipity of that?
Yeah, I think about it a lot. Anytime, someone asks me how we ended up with this lineup, it always blows my mind kind of how randomly it happened,
Yeah, man.
I wish I could say it was a clear vision, but I've never really operated with that much of a vision. I've just kind of just followed some weird muse or something. Whichever direction we go at the time is all good.
I think when things are, I'll use the quote, supposed to be, the universe makes them happen, man, which is really cool, and definitely what happened here, I think. So that's how Jon's drums, violin, and guitar trio is born. Jon Stickley Trio, and it's Jon, Jon, has released 5 albums so far. Their current album, Scripting the Flip, was released just last week from the time you're listening to this. So I also want to tell you, Jon did a full-blown interview on the show about 1.5 years ago. So if you're listening to the audio version of the show, I'm going to re-air that original interview after today's shorter interview about the new record, Scripting the Flip. It's a great interview. Jon's a great guy, and you really need to know more about him if you don't already. It will not be broadcast on the YouTube channel because they basically condemn you to hell if you put the same thing on twice. Anyway, Jon, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's always good to hear your music and listen to you and see you, man.
Glad to be here.
Okay, so there's a lot going on this record. Are you playing guitar only, or do you play other things, other instruments besides guitar?
Guitar only.
Okay, man, that's amazing. All right, so on the record, I thought there's some great songwriting, and as I mentioned to you a few minutes ago before we started, it's a very rhythmically driven record. I felt the drums played a really important role there, and you told me it's a new drummer, so I don't know if you want to mention him or her, or who your other band members are as well.
Yep. Yeah, so Hunter Deacon, he's been with us over 2 years now. And, anytime you have a lineup change, especially in a trio setting like this, it was an easy transition, but it was a bit of a lengthy adjustment period to get to where we were really locked in, and where he was comfortable doing what he needs to do, and we're comfortable with him, and figuring out our communication style. I mean, overall, it was a very easy transition to make, but it's such a unique trio, the thing we have going on, and I think it just took him a little while to kind of wrap his head around how we function.
There's no rhythm. He's the rhythm section. Usually there's, that's a big, responsibility. It's probably a lot of moving parts to be aware of that.
Yep. So we toured pretty hard right out of the gate with him. And then he was around for about 1.5 years before we started going into the studio to work on the album.
Yeah.
And so that was enough time to really develop a groove with him. And he's got a whole thing going on, man. He's got a degree. He's classically trained in this stuff, and you can tell when you get in the studio with him, his paradiddles and flim-flams are just dead on.
Honestly, man, he's a monster. And you guys do not sound that I was kind of torn because I've listened to the other records and I said, man, this sounds like a new drummer. But the reason I didn't think it was is you guys were locked in so tight. And I didn't think, how could a new drummer, I mean, you could play good, but like you guys are really locked in on the whole, and there's a lot of fast runs, just a lot of stuff going on the record. So, I mean,
yeah, I think it's the fact that he just jumped right in the van and we took off from the word go, man. We were on the road. Like we did not stop when he joined the band. And so he got some time out there to really knock it around with us. And, now he's just on fire, man. I mean, he's amazing. So
that's great, man. Well, I thought
and the cool thing is like with Pat, the old drummer, he's a groove-based drummer. He's always been a pocket guy. Right. So him coming into this band was a little bit of an adjustment for him, but we also totally embraced that style and kind of played around that. Whereas Hunter has a lot more of an improvisational, melodic, jazz approach, really. And so we just went a little bit that way, and he met us in the middle with like the grassy rhythms and stuff, and it's taken the band into a whole new direction.
Absolutely, and it sounds wonderful. I was curious, when you have, like, there's a lot of lines on the record where you have either like call and response between you and the fiddle player, or you're both tracking the same lines. Did you write those lines out, or did that just come, you wrote the melody out and the chords, and then that came together as you guys put the music together?
Yeah, usually I
want to talk to you about the Bose S1, which is an amazing speaker for acoustic guitars that I've been playing lately. The S1 has two separate channels. It has one for your guitar and then another one for a microphone. And then there's a third channel you can use for a looper or for backing tracks that you could access by Bluetooth or through a 1/8 inch plug. And the S1s are also very easy to carry. It's got an easy to grab top handle, and absolutely anyone can tote it around. And it's also rechargeable for up to 11 hours. The S1 was specifically designed to optimize the sound of your acoustic guitar on acoustic guitar gigs. The guitar and mic channels each have separate tone, volume, and reverb controls, and there's also a proprietary tone match switch which restores and optimizes the natural sound of your acoustic guitar, which, as you know, is typically the biggest problem with acoustic amps. Now, I tested the S1 myself, and the tone, volume, and reverb controls sound great, and they're very responsive. You can position the S1 in 4 different ways. You can tilt it back so you broadcast out to an audience, or you could put it horizontally, vertically, or on a stand. And the cool thing is the S1 has a Bose accelerometer, so it automatically adjusts the EQ and optimizes the sound for whichever one of these 4 positions you're using. The S1 also happens to be the best Bluetooth speaker that Bose makes, which is pretty compelling since Bose is known for the quality of their Bluetooth speakers. So effectively, you have an acoustic guitar amp, a PA, and a killer Bluetooth speaker all in one. And the bottom line is this: if you're an acoustic guitar player, there's absolutely nothing out there that sounds this good and this big that's also easy to carry and battery powered. As far as the Bluetooth speaker goes, I've used it many times here at home for family barbecues, and the sound is so good, my kids wind up arguing over who gets to play the music they want. It's literally like having a full stereo system out on your patio. You can use the S1 for DJing, tailgating, or whatever you want. Before this, you'd have to spend a bunch of money on loads of different speakers and pedals to get the same thing the S1 does on its own. On top of that, it looks great just like all Bose devices do. And besides whatever money back guarantee you get from wherever you buy the S1, Bose also warranties the S1 for 2 years for any kind of defects in materials or performance. For more information and to find out where to get your own S1, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/S1. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/S1. Get the S1. It's outstanding. Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the Tampa Bay area without having to deal with pushy realtors? Then make sure you connect with West Florida Real Estate. West Florida Real Estate has helped over 300 homeowners and investors buy and sell their properties over the last 5 years. Their service is outstanding, just like back in the days when there was actually service in the service business, and you'll never have to deal with any kind of sales junk when you're working with them. For more information, email Ann with an E at westfloridarealestate.com. That's ANNE at westfloridarealestate.com. If you're enjoying this show and you'd like to support it, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/support. And for information on advertising, visit everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise.
Bring a fairly fully formed demo to the group, which is usually, a chord progression, a rhythm, and a melody.
Okay.
And so then we just start moving that around, hey, maybe we play the melody and harmony together, or maybe I cross pick guitar over you playing the melody on violin, or maybe you switch to bass on violin and I'll pluck it up high. It's like, we basically just have a kind of a basic outline for the song, and then I bring that to the group. They listen to it. We get together and we arrange it, in a rehearsal.
Yeah. It sounded wonderful, man. I couldn't believe how, you guys are playing at a pretty fast clip, some of these songs, man. And it's so intricate, and it was just spot on. Everything, the playing was just, you guys, like I said, are really locked in.
Thanks.
That being said, this record seems, I don't want to say more bluegrassy, but the bluegrass aspect seemed to be a little more dominant than some of your other records.
Cool, man. That's really good to hear. It's like everything we do is an experiment building on things we've already done. So one of the goals of this project, and one of the reasons we went with the studio we did and the label, is that they are pros in the bluegrass world. So they are used to getting acoustic tone to sound extremely clear and full and natural.
Yeah.
And that's something we haven't quite ever been. We're happy with our old records, but with the studio we've worked at in the past, it's like a great rock, and it's just a great studio for rock, like killer drum sounds and everything like that, and vintage quirky gear from the 90s. Like a lot of the gear came from this grunge studios in Seattle. Echo Mountain is where we've worked in the past, so that's in Asheville. And so we wanted to get away from a little bit from the rock vibe and go a little bit more, detailed acoustic tone. And I think we pulled it off, and that's probably added to the kind
100%
of grassiness of it.
Yeah, 100%. It's just really clean. And I thought there was even some really, like, in the intro of the song Checkered Past, there's like some, there's pretty classical, lines in there. Sometimes you and sometimes your fiddle player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Lindsay, she's been playing classical since she was 12.
Yeah.
And then she's got a degree in jazz violin performance and has played bluegrass. Her dad was Vassar Clements' right-hand man down there in Florida growing up. And so she heard Vassar Clements play in person in her living room when she was in the womb. And
that's pretty bad.
She's just got she's got a vast musical background that just goes everywhere. So she can do anything.
Yeah.
And, but like that song, that intro to Checkered Past, that's just like it's kind of like what I was talking about before. We had I came up with a melody and a rhythm guitar part and a drum groove. And we just isolated that melody that I came up with on mandolin, and she kicks that song off on fiddle, just doing that melody solo. And it like takes on this whole other life of its own, where it's got that classical sound. And I was just a little lick that I came up with over the chords that eventually come in later.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great track, great intro. Is there like any kind of theme that you were looking to put forward for this, or just,
I don't think so. No, there's not really a theme per se, but it was very thematic in just the development of the band, where we're basically working with slightly different, more obscure rhythms. Lindsay and I are both developing our bass playing. Like we both use pedals to simulate bass. Like I can do it on guitar and she can do it on violin. We don't do any looping, but we can cover bass parts. And that is something that grows and grows with each project we do. And with each show we play, we're still trying to like figure out the switch points and how Lindsay can go from playing up here to the way she holds it down when she plucks bass. There's a little bit of a logistical plan that has to be in place.
Yeah.
because she can't go instantly from the two. So a lot of the time we'll build in the song, we'll build in enough space for her to make that change.
That's really smart, man. That's a lot of work too.
It's a lot to think about. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
so she can't go straight from this to this. So maybe if we have a little drum fill section, that'll give her time to switch, and then we can flip flop.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. What was, especially now, even pre-coronavirus, the environment was tough, and a lot of people are putting out EPs. What you put out a full-blown, it was like 10 or 11 songs on there. And
yeah.
What was your motivation for doing that?
Well, it had a lot to do with the new label we're working with, Organic Records, out of Asheville. And the new approach is kind of set up for modern times. It's kind of a streaming based approach. So what we do, because the studio's in Asheville, we're able to go in we recorded this album over 6 months, and we usually went in for 2 days at a time over 6 months, and each day we recorded a song.
So each 2 day jaunt in there, you recorded a song.
2 songs.
Two songs.
A song per day. So we would go in for a 2-day section and record 2 songs.
Based on when you had gaps in touring, or?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just because we were touring so much. And it was an amazing way to do it, because there's a lot of cool things about it. The first one was that I only had to have 2 songs together. So
you're a great guy. You look at the glass half full. That's awesome. Yeah. Man. I'm thinking, oh my God, that's a shit ton of work. You're like, no, that was good, because that's great.
It's actually kind of cool. So it's like, okay, the first session happens. We've got 2 new songs put together. Mm-hmm. So we go in and record those 2 songs. And then shortly after that, we mixed and mastered those 2 songs and released one of them as the first single.
Okay.
So we released the first single of the new album before we had most of the album done, which was this is the first time we've ever done anything like that. So that got people streaming the first single to the upcoming.
What was the first single?
First single was Animate Object.
Okay. Very cool. Great song.
And it was like released on Spotify and iTunes as a single. And then we went in the following month. So it's basically each month we would go in and do a 2-day session.
Wow.
And that would give us time to get together 2 more songs, road test them a little bit even. And
that's really, so you got to iron out the kinks.
Yeah. And on some of them we didn't. Some of them were we learned them in rehearsal the day before the session. So some of the stuff on there is extremely fresh. Yeah. Some of the tunes are road tested. So that's kind of how we did it over a 6-month period, basically a session per month. And we started releasing as soon as we had tracks. So the first, we did Animate Object, and then about a month and a half later, we released Don't Slip. And then the final single came out, and that was Bluegrass in the Backwoods.
That's the last song on I think that's my favorite song on the record.
We got to do that's the old school bluegrass tribute cover. We kind of reworked it in our own style, but we honestly didn't change the melody very much at all from exactly what Kenny Baker played.
It's a really nice song. You guys do a great arrangement of it. Well, man, congratulations, because it's a lot of work went into this record. And I interview, most people are not coming out with 11 tracks, almost a full hour of music, man. So,
well, yeah, it actually surprised me when I sat down and finally listened to the whole thing all the way through. I got to about the 45-minute mark, and I'm like, damn, this is a long record. Like, yes. Wow, this is a longer record than we've ever done. It's like 50 minutes long or
it's
more.
50 minutes long. Yeah.
It's 50 minutes long. And so the way we spaced it out and did it over time, it was like when you added it all up together, it was like a lot of music. And it didn't feel like it as much music as it is. It's not like we were in there for a week just hammering this shit out straight. Right. The fact that we did it over time kind of made it a little easier. And I can hear growth and transition and development as I listen through the record. I'm like, okay, this is one of the songs we recorded last. And you can really hear that we got to know the studio, the engineer got familiar with what we do. We became more comfortable and dialed in our sound. So it's like, there's some, you know, variation in the tracks, which is pretty cool.
Oh, it's great. Let me ask you this, because I think a lot of people might be listening to this and say, hey, hold on a minute. How is this guy touring so much, has a label, comes in once a month to tour? I mean, your work ethic is off the charts awesome. But you're in a, like, I don't want to use the word, like a obscure, you know, not obscure, but you're not in like mainstream music even, but you're playing at all the mainstream festivals. Your music is very easy to listen to no matter what kind of music you like. So what would you say is it, you know, for people saying, how the hell can I get my band going like that? What advice would you give? Because you're doing everything right. Plus you're working your ass off.
Yeah. Well, it's taken some time. I mean, we're about, I don't even know what year mark we're at, but it's around the 10-year mark.
Okay.
And so it doesn't happen instantly. It grew slowly over time. And, you know, it took me a second to come around to this, but we did our first 2 albums were crowdfunded. And that actually, you know, I would recommend that if you've got a band that you really want to take to the next level and you want to get out there and do this, a crowdfunding campaign, you know, we use Kickstarter, and that drummed up a lot of awareness and a lot of just, it was like as much as it is a funding campaign, it's like a PR campaign. It's saying, look, we have this dream, we have this goal, this is what we want to do, and would you like to at least just pre-order the album if you have any interest? And so the first one we did, we had about 300 donors. You know, we met our goal, and that was like, okay, we've got a fan base. We've got at least 300 people that care about this. So as much as the money was great to have to do the record, it also, we had this backing of this group of people that believed in it. And that gave us an energetic boost. And it's like, you have that network to say, hey, look, now we're coming to Atlanta. There were backers in Atlanta who, you know, came out to the show. It's just a big, like, snowball effect.
Yeah.
So
how many, sorry, go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
And then as far as going out and playing, focus on your town, and then focus on the nearby town. So it's like, you build your town, you build your region, and then you start building some markets. It's like the first place we started going was Colorado. So
right. You do that
Colorado's
big Telluride thing out there, don't you?
Yep. We were at Telluride this year for the first time.
Awesome,
but it's
man.
just people love music in Colorado. There's a scene there. It's like the fans are some of the best fans in the world. It's like a religion out there. Yeah. So that's the first place we started going. It's like, okay, we got Asheville, we got Knoxville, we got Atlanta, we got Colorado. And then you just work that same thing. You keep going back to your region, and then you start branching out Chicago, and start small and just keep it going. You know? That's
wonderful, man. So there's a lot of valuable lessons there. Number one, most important is, I think it happens over time, not overnight, you know, because and I think this is the problem that people, so somebody may recently have heard of you and say, who the hell is this Jon Stickley? I never heard of him before. Now he's everywhere. The problem is, you've been doing this 10 years. The fact that that person never heard of you before, that's exactly what you've been battling and trying to make happen. So it's just finally work. You know, how did this guy overnight sensation? No. There's a lot of sleepy, cold nights in a van in Michigan in the wintertime.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I heard Charles Barkley on the Conan podcast recently. He cracked me up. He's like, people always say, this guy came out of nowhere. He's like, he didn't come out of nowhere. He's like, if you call working every week of your life, working every weekend, practicing all day and all night for 10 years, coming out of nowhere, then, oh yeah, okay, I guess he did come out of nowhere.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm so happy for you, man. And I'm so proud of everything you've done, because it is work, and you're doing a great job, and you are getting a lot of recognition, and it's well deserved. 300 people, the first crowdfunding, how many people went on the second, if you remember?
I think the second one was more up around 500, and we also had a higher goal. So we were leaning on the people we already had from the first one.
Yeah.
And that's about 2 years later, and you don't want to bug them too much.
No, but that's
we had been out.
Nice.
The first album did fairly well, and then we were out there playing for 2 years, touring behind it. And so by the time we did the second one, there was some growth.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really good, man. I'm so happy for you.
And then now this album, we knew we couldn't, because there had been growth. We're busier. We're touring like crazy. We couldn't release it ourselves again because it takes so much work to do a release that we knew we had to partner up with somebody who could handle that side of things, which Organic has a great team put together where, you know, there's an office and there's just people working on every aspect of the album release all day long.
Great.
And, that just
so it's like a proper
blows
label.
my mind to go over there to see them doing it all. I'm like, oh my God, thank you all. Thank you.
That's great. So they're a proper old school label in a sense.
Yeah, they are.
What a label's supposed to do.
The studio and the offices are all in one little complex over there, and there's a team, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing. But the way that they're old school, they're also very forward thinking and modern as far as their embracing of streaming and just being very realistic about how is the industry shifting and where is it going, where do we need to focus our energy on.
Awesome.
You know, 'cause a lot of people, you know, bitch about the streaming thing, and it's a big change. It's a very weird new world, but there's a lot of opportunities that come along with it. So that's just what we're trying to embrace and trying to, you know, just go that way and figure it out.
And bitching about it is not going to fix or change it. That's the thing. I mean, you know,
you just got to change your perspective.
Yeah, you have to adapt. Everything in life, you got to adapt, man. This shit doesn't last forever for the most part. You know, anything. If you're an entrepreneur, and everybody that's a guitar player or any kind of musician is an entrepreneur, because you're running a business without you're running your own thing. The number one, I've been self-employed 21, 22 years. The number one thing I've learned is the best skill you can have is flexibility, man. Because shit changes all the time. You're running ads and Facebook or Google changes the algorithm. I mean, everything changes, man. You know, and you have to be able to adjust. Any special guests on the record?
We do have one special guest. The first special guest to ever be on a Stickley Trio record. And it's Andy Thorne, my best buddy from childhood. He's one of my favorite musicians. He's a banjo player for Leftover Salmon. And he came in and played on a song that I kind of wrote with him in mind. It's called Driver.
Driver is a great track.
It was kind of inspired by me watching my first Fish show. And I was like, man, I got to get Andy in on this one. And
that's nice.
Yeah, so it adds a little pepper in the mix. You know, it's nice to have that plucking sound in there.
Sounds great, man. Who did the mixing and the mastering and the engineering?
So it was engineered, we recorded it at Crossroads Studios in Asheville, where Organic Records is based. Scott Barnett was the engineer. He's the house engineer there. And Van Atkins is the other house engineer. And he, hello, are you still there?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It looks like you got a call coming through. That's what happened. Yeah.
But, so Van, the other house engineer, mixed the album. And then we came in and did the second round of mixing together once he had just done a first pass. And he also mastered it.
It's laid out perfectly, man. I mean, the sound, because I have like real speakers. Like I don't listen to, when I listen to music I really want to get into, I always put it in my speakers, not my headphones. I don't know why.
I'd like to hear it through your speakers.
Oh, man, you know, it's funny. I have a pair of Polk audio speakers, like big ones here in my office. Then I have a pair of older ones that they were old. So I just got, but they're still good. I went to all three of my kids. They were like almost 30, 28 and 20. And I said, hey guys, I got this great pair of speakers. And they looked at me like, why would I want a pair of speakers?
Yeah.
And I was like,
what would I use that for?
Right. You listen to me, and they're just like, what? You know, I was like, I was kind of sad. I was like, but you don't understand. So it sounded great. The mixing and everything it's really well done, really well done.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I was just
we're happy with it. We're we're thrilled with the way it turned out, and it's like I feel like we kind of captured what we were going for as far as the acoustic quality.
It's second to none, man. It's one of the best engineered acoustic records I've heard. It's so
Awesome.
freaking clean, and I listen to shit tons of music.
Cool.
It's so clean, and it's just everything was great on it, man. It was really I couldn't believe how much work you put into it because it's that well done. You've released some solo records in the past before the trio, didn't you?
Yeah. There's 2 Jon Stickley albums out there on Spotify, and the first one was my first solo. Just got all my friends to come play on it, and it's a pretty bluegrassy record. It's a bluegrass lineup, and got Bobby Britt from Town Mountain on fiddle, and Andy Thorne on banjo. I think Charlie Rose from Elephant Revival came in and played some bass on it. We had Russell Johnson's from the Grass Cats sang a couple tracks. I played mandolin and guitar and bass on it. And then there's another one out there called Stickley ... And it is basically all me overdubbed with a few guests. So it's me on bass, guitar, and mandolin. And then I had Joe Troop from Che Appalache played banjo on it. The late Billy Constable played banjo on it. And then Lindsey Pruitt came in and played violin.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
That was done right around the time the trio was getting going. So Lindsey was starting to be a big part of things.
You think you'll be issuing any other solo records, or you're committed to the trio for a while, or?
Committed to the trio for the most part, but I've got some other projects I want to do. I'm doing a duo with Andy Thorne now called Sticks and Thorns.
Very good. I see what you did there, John.
Yeah, we're doing some Sticks and Thorns stuff. Maybe we might do a record together, and then I also want to do a Stickley Brothers album with my brother Jeff at some point.
That's nice, man.
Those are 2 things I might put some time into before too long.
That's very cool. Did you particularly learn anything from the experience of making this record about recording, or anything that you hadn't learned before?
Not really. I think, I got a little more comfortable than I've ever been before. It's like each time you learn a little more about how to set your mix and things like that. One thing that I've done recently is really dialed down the volume in my headphones. So I listen to almost the sound of I'm kind of monitoring my guitar acoustically. And so I'll just kind of get the mix in the headphones just loud enough to where I can play with it. And that's kind of how I practice around the house too. I'll put my earbuds in just in an extremely low volume and then play guitar to that, so you can hear the guitar through the phones. And that kind of
makes sense, actually.
That kind of dulled down the tone of the guitar a little bit, because that's one thing is guitar tone in the cans. I've never been able to get it quite warm enough. It's always very immediate, and can be a little brash in studio headphones. So I've really been trying to get as much natural sound from the actual instrument into my mix as I can.
That's cool.
That's one thing that I really changed that up a little bit this time. And then the other thing we did was we're learning a lot more about how to track the trio with the bass effect and things. So this time we monitored everything. We recorded we recorded with everything with the bass on, and the bass we recorded the bass effect on through a separate output. And then instead of flipping the switch, like stepping on our pedals to make it switch, we just recorded the whole track, and then later in editing we went in and pieced it up so that this is me playing bass, so let's pull out the acoustic guitar and just use the bass, even though we were just monitoring everything acoustically in our head. And then we took that bass signal and ran that through an amp and mic'd the amp. So we did a lot of reamping of the bass on this. So that bass affected tone was going through later through a bass amp and then mic'd, and that gave us the best bass effect sound, especially on the violin, because that when you use that bass effect, it can sound a little weird because it's not a true bass, you know. It's a pog pedal. But so, you know, a little bit of studio magic in the moment there, but you know, everything was played live, but it was some of the signals that we recorded simultaneously got cut up and used in different ways.
Yeah, sure. That totally makes that's recording, man. That's recording. Yep. I want to talk about a couple of the tracks that I really liked. Harmon Den.
Mm-hmm.
Man, some serious shredding. And I mean, you know, when you listen to an acoustic player shred and you play electric, it kind of puts you to shame because it's so much harder. And I mean, you really ripped it up on a couple of runs there. What was the backstory? I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, well, that song that's kind of one of the ragers on the album.
Okay.
And it's named after a rock slide that happened at a place called Harmon Den in the gorge on I-40 heading west outside of Asheville. You drive through this really treacherous mountain gorge that follows the Pigeon River. And at the Harmon Den exit, there was a big rock slide that put a kink in our traveling. Every time we headed west, we had to go up over the mountain through Marshall and Hot Springs instead of just taking 40. And so we wanted a really climactic moment, you know, in that song. And towards the end of it's basically a bridge part that just grows and grows and grows and builds into a kind of a chaotic climax before the song ends with the final melody. And that was just one of those times I was like, okay, you know, when you're playing live and kind of certain times late night, you know, we do a lot of late night festival sets, and that's when certain licks just come out of the energy. You know, it's like sometimes you're in such a high energy moment that you do something that you didn't think was possible. And so there's a technique that I use at that very climactic moment, which is kind of it's just a pattern that uses open strings, but I'm playing high up the neck. Mm-hmm. And it's just a, you know, alternating picking pattern about as fast as I can play. And I was like, that'll be perfect for that moment in that song.
Dude, that was about as fast as anyone can play. That was like, I was just, and it was really clean. That's the thing, man. You can't, you know, you have distortion on an electric guitar, and it, you know, if it's not as clean, it's more, the instrument's more forgiving, the amp and the instrument. Not on acoustic, man. You don't have that level of forgiveness. I was just blown away, man. I was just like, yeah, that was just really awesome. That was,
and that's something that's always blown my mind about other acoustic guitarists that I listen to. You know, it's even Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin, those guys, when they play acoustic,
right?
It's so clean and precise, and that blows my mind, because it's like, yeah, that's not fuzzed over, man. There's nothing to hide there. That is actually being done. It's like,
but, wow. Dude, put yourself in that category. That was total. That was awesome. Really did a great job there. And then the last song that we talked about, Bluegrass and the Backwoods, a little bit of classical in the opening, and then it sort of goes into like, it was like almost a flamenco rhythm part for short little, you know, and then great, you know, kind of bluesy guitar runs and some great fiddle work. I felt like I didn't realize that was a cover. That it felt like that would be a great song to put in a soundtrack for like a chase scene.
Yeah,
you know, it was great, man. And I love listening to music like that, because I don't know, maybe I'm just nuts, but it takes you on a journey, and that you could see this like chase scene happening. I can't, you know, for me anyway, it was a really nice track. Tell me the backstory to that. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So that is an amazing song. It was written in the 70s by, I think it was this like 70s by, Bill Monroe's longtime fiddle player, Kenny Baker.
Okay.
And from what I've heard, Kenny Baker was at times wanted to be more of a jazz fiddle player. So he really listened, had big ears, and listened and incorporated a lot of different styles in his playing. But he's known as the quintessential bluegrass fiddle player. He was with Monroe for, I don't know, 25, 30 years. And during that time, he recorded some solo albums, and Bluegrass in the Backwoods is one of his most famous songs. And I've always thought it was a really cool song because it's one of those ones that it doesn't sound like bluegrass. It's like there's obviously classical, gypsy jazz. I mean, you can hear Stephen Grappelli in the influence.
That's what it was. It was more like gypsy jazz, not really a flamenco, but it was yeah, definitely. I couldn't put my hand on it. Thank you.
Yeah, so we've always loved that song, and it's one we've talked about covering a lot. And so the one thing that we really did change up is the rhythmic approach. So, the A part is a little more of a Latin kind of groove. And then we go straight, almost Waylon Crisco, country disco on the final section. And that Hunter also brought in a lot of his rhythmic background on that, because he's played a lot of different styles over the years. And so he had a lot of fun with that, brought in the cowbell. And other than that, though, we really did try to stick to the original melody. Like I played basically as close as I could get to the Kenny Baker fiddle melody, but I did it on the low register of guitar, which was
probably difficult different.
As hell. It was, yeah, it took me quite a while. Yeah. I had Lindsay, I said, Lindsay, can you send me a slowed down version of the melody? And so she sent it to me, and I said, I'm going to need it slower than that.
Yeah, there was a lot going on there.
I was like, I need it real slow.
That was a lot. Yeah. Great track. I don't know the original. I'm going to go listen to it, but you did a really nice cover of it, man.
Thanks.
Really awesome. Do you have any favorites on there? What are your personal favorites?
Ooh, I really like, I guess it's track 2, but it's the first real song on there after the fiddle intro.
Fighting Chance?
Fighting Chance.
Yeah, good track.
That was a fun one. And that was actually really inspired by a new guitar that I got during the recording process. So there's two, I got a new guitar about halfway through recording the record.
What'd you get?
I got a Preston Thompson from Sisters, Oregon. I got it right here, actually.
Yeah, man, let's check it out.
Yeah. So there's the
nice guitar, man. Nice.
And it's Adirondack spruce top, but it's a really dark sunburst. And then
I like that stripe.
Indy rosewood.
Yeah, that's a really pretty guitar, man.
So it's basically like a Martin D28, but kind of with a Gibson color to it. And man, I love it a lot. But it took a second. I got it, and then I still used the Griggs for the next session, my old guitar. And then by the time we went in for the last session, I had gotten really comfortable with this one. So I cut,
I think
there's 4 tunes that I used that one on, and the rest are the Griggs.
What did you play the last song, the Bluegrass in the Backwoods? Was that on?
Bluegrass in the Backwoods is the Griggs.
Yeah, dude, honestly, I'm sorry to keep harping on that, but I haven't heard acoustic shredding like that. That was cool. Just so cool, man. Yeah.
They're both really great guitars, but this one, the cross picking was really coming across on it. I was like, wow, this is almost the easiest guitar I've ever been able to cross pick on. So
that's great.
Fighting Chance was written, using a cross picking pattern that I would just kind of having fun jamming on that guitar with. So
that's awesome, man. It sounded great. I rarely ask about titles, but scripting the flip is a cool one. So especially it's hard to name instrumental songs in the general and then to name an instrumental album.
Yeah.
So, obviously it's a pun on flipping the script, but where'd you get the title from?
Well, okay. So that's the name of one of the songs. And the song employs a device that I kind of came up with. It's another thing. It happened late night at a festival, and this happens a lot in bluegrass. Like you get in a jam, and because everything is like bump, 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 there's always like a 2 alternating thing. Every now and then, if you get lost, you'll end up flip-flopping that. and the offbeat ends up on the onbeat, and the onbeat ends up on the offbeat, and it starts to sound really weird. And well, there was one late night where I was like, I'm just going to do that on purpose and just mess with everybody.
Oh.
And so I started doing it, and then
mess with everybody, you mean your band members?
Yeah, messing with the other people in the jam.
Yeah, okay.
And so I got to a point where I was like, oh man, this is actually kind of fun. So I would do it every now and then. And so I was like, I'm going to write a song based on the flip-flopped rhythm guitar that you play as an accident sometimes.
Right.
And so that song kicks off with rhythm guitar, and it's like, you know, kind of a typical bluegrass rhythm pattern. But then the drums come in, and it kind of eliminates the fact that I was playing it backwards, because the drums don't come in where a typical bluegrass listener would expect them to.
Right.
So that was like, I need to come up with a name for this song that uses the term flip.
Right.
And so that's when I was like, oh, flipping the script. And then I was like, oh wait, what if you flip that and did scripting the flip? So, and then I kind of started thinking about that more and more. And I was like, man, this band is kind of all about scripting the flip.
Absolutely, man.
We kind of embrace what's weird and these little magical moments that happen in jams that are strange and aren't necessarily right, but that's the kind of stuff we latch onto and just run with. So
awesome. Well, it's a great record. As I said, I'm really happy for you. Let me tell people where they can get the record. First of all, it's Jon Stickley, Jon Stickley, Stickley. The Jon Stickley Trio. It's called Scripting the Flip. All of Jon's records are great. But what I would like you to do to support Jon and his music is to follow him. If you are on Spotify, man, follow Jon on Spotify. That would be, is it under your name or is it under the Jon Stickley Trio?
Jon Stickley Trio.
Awesome. Follow the Jon Stickley Trio on Spotify. That helps him out a lot with the Spotify algorithms. And, you know, I think we all need to support each other. That's always been the theme of this show. So please do that and keep that going. If you're going to stream it, also stream it on Spotify if you have a choice. If you want a copy of the physical record, go to jonstickley.com. Again, it's Jon Stickley, Stickley.com. And also you can get a bunch of merch on there. Jon's got some cool t-shirts and hats. On social media, like Jon's page at Jon Stickley Trio on Facebook, and then you can follow him and connect with him on Instagram and Twitter at the same Jon Stickley Trio. Also, if you are interested in lessons, if you like Jon's style, or if you want some help, I mean, he's very unique in developing his own style. If you want some help and you're looking for some guidance as to how to flush out your own style, or you're looking for help to work through things, he's an incredible acoustic guitar player, man. I mean, he's got his shit together. So if you do want a lesson, message him on Facebook. Just be specific, you know, hey, I'd like to take lessons with you. This is what I do. You know, just give him some information that he could respond properly, as opposed to, I want lessons. That's kind of vague. So, and also, I'm going to ask him where they're touring, but stay tuned. They tour a lot, man. So come out and see Jon play. These guys really got it together, and Jon's created something magical for 10 years. So keep that in mind, man. This is like a lot of work involved, and support that. Where, I know everything's up in the air with touring now, but where do you think you'll be later? Let's assume, you know, midsummer, life comes back to normal.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a nationwide schedule right now.
So great, man.
Unfortunately, we were looking at some pretty sweet plays in April and May, which we're probably not going to get to any of those, including our album release show in Asheville. And basically, it was going to be a big album release tour year for us, but we will be ready to get right back at it, and we're not going to need a break for a while after we get going. So we'll be everywhere. I know we go to a Chicago area all the time. We're always in Colorado. We'll be going up the East Coast, up and down, but then hope to get out to the West Coast this year a little more, because we didn't get out as much as we could last year to California and Oregon and Washington. So hope to make it out there, but you know, we'll be everywhere. So just keep an eye out for us. And we've got a lot of festivals, dates out there too. So, you know, pretty much anywhere.
Awesome. And all that's on the Jon Stickley Trio Facebook page. So go on there and check him out. John's a lovely guy, man. If you see him, you get a chance to talk to him after the show, to say hello. He's a, you know, he's worked so hard, man. I'm so happy to see things are really taking off for you. It's so well deserved. And you know, you got a great work ethic. So hats off to you. Congratulations on everything. Anything else you want to talk about, or anything else I missed?
Well, yeah, I would just reiterate that that Spotify follow is really great, because
that's important.
We plan on releasing quite a bit more music in the coming years. So after this album is out for a few months, look out for another single from the next one.
Awesome.
So our goal is to keep releasing as much as we can, as constantly as we can. And then, other than that, man, just, check out our music.
How's your new puppy doing? It's not a puppy anymore, I'm sure, right?
She's doing great. She's actually, I locked her out of the room, so she's been whining a little bit during this. But yeah, she has been a handful, man. She was born with like kidney problems, so she had to have this big surgery right off the bat, and we had to take her back in every 3 months. But she's doing well, and we love her so much.
That's great.
Amazing. So,
I remember when you got her, man. It was good. I remember because you lost one right before that, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we lost one after we got her. So there was about a year that they were both together.
Yeah.
And the older one passed away. And now this one, we're just spoiling the hell out of her.
Good.
So,
right on, man. That's what you're supposed to do with animals, man. It kills me when I see people treating animals poorly, man. I don't get that.
Oh, no way, man. Yeah.
Hey, listen, best of luck to you. Thanks again for coming on. You're always welcome on here. I'll be looking forward to the next album, supporting it. And I'm so happy for everything's going well with you. And let's all hope that all this stuff settles down and everybody's back to normal and safety and good health soon. So let me wrap this up.
Thank you so much, Craig. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And I love following the podcast too, man. It's so interesting.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Hang on one second. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Support the Jon Stickley Trio. Again, go to jonstickley.com. If you could really just make the effort and click the link to follow Jon Stickley Trio on Spotify, that would be really cool. And again, if you want to stream on Spotify, physical merchandise and physical CDs on jonstickley.com. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Jon Stickley Trio. And if you're interested in acoustic guitar lessons from a monster player, connect with John on his Facebook page at the Jon Stickley Trio. Most important, especially nowadays with all this crazy shit going on, remember that happiness really is a choice. So make sure you choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. John, thank you so much, brother. Continued success and best of luck to you.
All right. Thank you.